So let's do a little bit of editing in this video. Good evening, Mr. President. Richard Nixon once exclaimed, "War is heck." Well, Nixon undoubtedly was focusing on the bloodshed and brutality that occurs in wars of all eras and in all eras of all eras. Walt Whitman said, "Would train his eye on the more positive and community-inspiring aspects of this societal struggles." Societal? They're not really day-to-day society. Just come up of these. We might have to break our rule here, just like the joys of using alliteration. These conflicts. It's called armed because we're sort of also penning the picture, because the poem he talks about arming. The people are arming, and there's cannons and they're gold. Like, he literally goes right at it and he celebrates. He puts that picture. So we're not going to really defend that aggressively, but I still think that we're sort of setting the stage for people to allow us to explicate this poem and to make an argument that we call wars. Those first songs. For a prelude acknowledges the atrocities of war. And again, atrocities is not the same as bloodshed, brutality. There's synonyms, but we're using different words. So we want to keep it very interesting. And war's inherent ability to bring people together collectively and actively to fight and work toward a common goal. His first poem in his anthology in poems, Drum Town, relays the speaker's jubilant feeling. So let's just change that to jubilance. I'm seeing people of all different walks of life, occupations, and age brackets team up. Walks of life, occupations, and age. Hard to fight. This essay will chronicle women's use of different literary devices, and we'll go through the poems. From the house, the speakers excitedly leapt, and then there's our italics. Seems to. Let's dump this sort of passive language. Again, I said sort of, that's sort of passive. But passive language, so just highlights, just make direct statements. Women's choice highlights the bonds. It strengthens your argument as opposed to saying seems to. You want to omit like weakness in your writing. You want to just be very confident. Women's choice highlights the bonds among the city's people while also minimizing the notion of preferential. The speaker shuns individuality through this word choice. So this is very direct, and it sort of drives the point home. So something that corrects nature's single cause, such as war. Essentially, the reader gets a snapshot in order of A, the houses, B, the workshop. And the in the following sequence. Gets a snapshot that we want to talk about like the reader perceives something. We can just say the speaker shares description or describes. The speaker relays this event through the following sequence. We're like basically repeating it. So let's dump this. And then let's dump this because we're not really arguing that. It doesn't really help our thesis. So we're gonna say additionally, in addition, the domestic settings that are described in the poem all share similar structures. On themselves. We already know because we've already repeated it in as opposed to unique individuality. Or you could say because we've been saying the word individuality over and over and over again, so you could say as opposed to the uniqueness of each of any of the people described in the poem. Also by introducing these shared spaces. This feature further relegates the individuality of each person to a minor role in this poem. And there it is. We're driving it home again. Instead, the speaker implies that individuals don't matter in this narrative. Just being very direct. And then we're saying word choices. We want to repeat word choice, word choice, word choice. Lastly, with regards to these two lines. So for social cause. And then let's go back to the thesis again. Collectively common. And then there's another opportunity to use alliteration, collective cause. So are they, what is all? Is it the occupations? Are the occupations joining the war effort? Or the people joining the war effort? People of different occupations. Describing the people. The cities, let's call them denizens. Describing the city's denizens as joining the war effort. Just being more creative, choosing different words. They've got to be appropriate, they've got to fit, but you want to mix it up. It's joining the war effort. So it starts with the young men, then moves to the mechanics, then the lawyer, then the judge, then the driver. So let's say, and arming themselves. And then that way here, we don't have to state this. So we can look back. So right here. From the houses and the workshops and through the doors, actually here, right here. Young men falling in and arming. The mechanics arming. The lawyer arming. So that's a lot of them. So they're not all described as arming themselves. So let's go back. There. And arming themselves. The speaker starts with the young man and moves to the mechanics and then the driver. What it's telling about these lines that the people depicted are unnamed. And not described. And not described thoroughly. Right? Not described thoroughly. They're instead. So here's where I would say rather. Rather they are, let's use a different word than described. They're relayed, they are reflected. They're reflected in generic terms. They're reflected in generic terms, such as their gender. They're relayed. They're illustrated. Right? They're illustrated or showcased. They are showcased in generic terms. They're illustrated in generic. So illustrated sort of implies creativity. So let's say showcased. They're showcased in generic terms. young, etc. The speaker's word choice here, again, we go back to word choice. The thesis emphasizes the collective over the personal, and the generic reference to people in a group over the individual. In a so people in a, what descriptive word can we describe? Can we put there for group? Generic reference to people in a sort of a non-unique group. Now this is fine. Generic reference to people in a group, because you could say generic group, but then or a synonym of generic in a. But I think it makes sense. Generic reference to people in a group over the individual, over the unique individual. Let's make that point even clearer. Further supporting the idea that war brings people together for a common goal. For a common goal that is perhaps much. So are we going to argue that it is much more important than the individual? No, we're just arguing that the individual is not important in this poem. And again, it goes back to our thesis. And all we're arguing is that the ability to bring people together collectively and actively, which removes their uniqueness. So we're sort of hinting that. And they're fighting and working towards a common goal. We're not going to go too crazy. We've already mentioned a little bit about, we're only mentioning that individuality and uniqueness are sort of pushed to the wayside in this poem to make our point, right? To make our essential point, which is that war brings people together for a selfless cause. So we don't want to spend too much time talking about the individual. We're going to focus largely on the common goal. Manhattan workers depart from their respective workplaces as they all share the same 134 together, with the line concluding with the word all. Again, the speaker's word choice displays an emphasis on war's collectivist nature, as all of these people from different places of employment not only share the same 134, but also, so not only but also, structure that the word leaving is on its own line. The Manhattan multitudes described here essentially leave together, which further underscores the poem's focus on war's innate ability to bring people together and leave their peacetime. I don't like too many hyphens. I don't think we need it. Peacetime, social. I don't know. We'll leave it in there. Social, because it looks right. Social and workspaces to join up for a common cause. So common cause, again, we go back up to our thesis. Common cause, collectively, actively, fight, work, common goal. And here we can sort of repeat this phrase. So you can sort of repeat the phrase, small little phrases that connect to the thesis, but you don't want to keep saying exactly the same thing. You want to, throw in these little flourishes and just mix up your word choice. If you don't do it all day at a time, it's not the end of the world. But if you sprinkle in these, like changing the Manhattan multitudes or these the people in the poem, or the Manhattan denizens, or the Manhattan citizens, or the Manhattanites. I mean, we're going to refer to them so much. I mean, the speaker, we kind of have to say the speaker, because I don't want to keep saying he/she. So that's going to be sort of boring for the reader. It's going to be the speaker, the speaker, the speaker. But we can describe everyone else and all these people in a more creative way. So these are just little ways to improve the writing. And even here, we can do. You don't want to break apart. Actually, when it's double spaced, it won't be an issue. So we'll make. But these aren't going to be double spaced. We're just going to double space this stuff, the main body, and then these won't be double spaced. So yes, so that'll be fixed. Okay, so we've done a little bit of revisions, gone over, made sure that our arguments are pointing towards the thesis, and we've made sure that our writing is interesting and grammatically correct, and again focused on defending the thesis. Until next time.